Welcome to MarcusG.TV. I'm Chef Marcus Guiliano. I'm a chef on a mission. Today's mission is business. Today's mission is opening a restaurant. How much money does it take to open a restaurant? Which is a question people ask me all the time. Marcus, I have 50,000, I have 100,000, I have 35,000. Is that enough to open a restaurant? And of course, my answer is no, no, and no. I don't care if you say 200,000 or 500,000. Chances are that's not enough to open a restaurant. And what do I mean by that? First of all, people just ask me these blind questions like, well, I want to open a restaurant. I have, some savings. I got 60,000. Is that enough? First of all, I don't know the situation of where you're opening a restaurant. I don't know what kind of building you're going into. I have no clue if it's turnkey. And places that say they're turnkey, they still cost a lot of money. Don't let people fool you and they go, oh, we have a turnkey restaurant for lease. It's ready to go. You just have to walk in. There's so many fees above and beyond with so-called turnkey that if you go in with a limited budget, you're not going to succeed. It's not enough. So here's a general rule about opening a restaurant, what you need for money. Figure out what you need, and then you times it by 3 to 5. That's correct, by 3 to 5. And people all the time tell me, Marcus, you're wrong, what do you mean, And then people come back to me and go, oh my gosh, Marcus, you were so right. There's so many things that can go wrong in opening a restaurant, that does go wrong in opening a restaurant. Unless you're opening up a franchise, and even things can still happen, but unless you're opening up something that's so systematized and cookie cutter, like a franchise. But if you're going into a franchise, they're going to want you to have like $1 million liquid, right? Because they don't want you to run out of money. They're going to have such stringent guidelines when you join a franchise that they want you to succeed. And you're going to succeed because they have a system, a formula, and because they want you to be overcapitalized. And people say, oh, I can't afford to do a franchise, but I can afford to do my own little thing better than a franchise. So here are the reasons why a restaurant will go over budget. And this can probably apply to a lot of businesses. Okay, the first reason you go over budget is because you don't have a budget. You just simply say, I haven't had time to take a budget and write things down and figure things out and cost things out. And when you don't have a budget, if you just have like a ballpark in your mind, I guarantee if you have a ballpark in your mind based upon your limited access to funds, you will definitely go over budget unless you totally stop and cut short and cut corners and open up when you're not ready. And opening up when you're not ready is not good at all. Okay, so to make a budget, you really need to go down and make a list of everything you can possibly think of, which that's never going to be enough, right? You actually need to study a budget, a profit and loss, a balance sheet. You need to study the accounting of a restaurant to begin with, of an existing restaurant or a sample of a restaurant, because there's things that you're going to think of that you're not going to think of that are there. There's going to be a ton of things. You're going to be like, wow, I had no idea I had to pay money to open a restaurant to do X, Y, and Z. I had no idea, like at the health department, it might be $100, it might be $200, but you would have never ever thought. For example, soda. When you start hooking up with soda guns and start running soda lines, your initial inventory, your initial order with installing all the equipment could be $1,000, could be $2,000. And if you're a brand new restaurant with no restaurant experience, no other restaurants, and don't have relationships, chances are that distributor's going to come in and say, I need at least half down, or I need full down for me to put all that equipment and everything in and all the product in. And all of a sudden, you're looking at 6-7 sodas on the gun. Each one is $100 for a bag in the box, a cylinder, whatever it is, plus all the equipment. You're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea to start pouring a $2 soda is going to cost me $1,500 to get into. And that's the reality. But there's things like that all across the board that you're just not going to think of. That's why you have to study another active or sample restaurant budget, because you're going to look like, oh my gosh, what's this, what's that, what's that? And don't think these things don't pertain to you, because they will totally pertain to you. One thing that operators never budget for enough of is training staff. They think, oh, we're going to open, we'll get staff in there a couple days ahead of time. You need to train your staff for a week, 2 weeks, which just means running 2 weeks of payroll. Now, an average restaurant can be $5,000, $7,000 in payroll. Do you have an extra $10,000 to $20,000 sitting around just to pay staff for 2 weeks? most people don't have that kind of money. So most operators open up themselves. I'm going to do everything myself, this and that. I'm going to train. And when you open the doors, your staff isn't trained. And those first impressions, we opened Aroma Thyme 13 years ago. And I got to tell you, people still remember the first time they walked into our restaurant. We have a lot of guests that have been with us for 13 years since the very beginning. And it's awesome. It's cool. And I'm totally blessed. And thank you so much to those loyal guests. But I got to tell you, some guests still remember the first week they were here, the first week we were open, the first 6 months we were open. The first 6 weeks we were open. The first 6 hours we were open. I have those people that still come into the restaurant too, but there's other people that don't come back because they do remember their experience. And if you're not ready from the get-go, you're shooting yourself in the foot. First impression is everything. Granted, every new place has growing pains. Every new place has kinks to work out. But you've got to be prepared. You've got to send your troops, your staff, to the friendly battlefield. 100% ammunitioned up, 100% prepared. They've got to go through basic training. And people don't send their staff through basic training when they open a restaurant. They open the doors and people start fending for themselves and they train as things happen, right? Most managers train when they see an employee do something wrong to begin with. Oh, don't do that, don't do that. They do on-the-job training, right? So it's just like spot training here and there. Like, you're doing that wrong, let me correct you. As opposed to having formal sit-down, full-out staff trainings, going over a manual, going over procedures, going over role-playing. So that takes money, people. That takes money. People don't have enough money to lose money. So here is, when you open your restaurant, you got to make sure you have tons of as much operating money as you possibly can, because I've only known one restaurant, and I talked to a lot of other restaurant owners. I've only known one other restaurant in 20 plus years of doing this, 25 years of doing this, where the guy has made money from month one. From month one, he's turned a profit and never looked back. That is extremely, extremely rare, to turn profit from month one. It's unheard of in the industry. So you need another $5,000 to cover your first month, $10,000. You need enough money to cover. You need enough money to cover like your basic expenses, rent, heat, all these basic expenses for 6 months. It's just like if you lost your job at home. If you lost your job, you need a nest egg. You need something back there, a backup. You need a backup plan. You need backup money sitting there even if you're not going to use it. That's what you need in the restaurant industry. You need that backup. You're going to have a bad week. You're going to have a bad month. You're going to need to be able to take and say, hey, I have this. You're going to need to be spending a lot of extra money in the beginning on advertising, marketing. There's a lot of ways to do this advertising and marketing for low cost now. But you might want to still resort to standard print media in the beginning because you don't have a list. If you go to my website, 50mistakes.com, I talk about a ton of stuff there on how to build your business, how to market your business. But when you open from day one, and there are tricks well before you open. My last restaurant I just opened, well before we opened, I had a nice database in there well before we opened, and I got for basically free. But I still had to spend a little bit of money. When I say basically free, it means I had to spend, a few $100 on products, a few $100 on staff, and a couple $100 to go to fairs, street fairs, and set up booths, right, and hand out products and get people to sign up for their emails and give me their emails. So it still costs money to do all that, and people just think, whoa, like for example, we had a blueberry festival here in Ellenville 2 weeks before we opened. Well, I had to man 2 people on that booth. I had to buy product, a couple $100 in product to give out. We could have sold the product, but when you're opening up, nobody wants to buy your product when you're opening up like that. They want to come in and sample things. So that's what we did. We set up right in front of the restaurant. It cost us probably $400 for the day. And that's, if you're opening up with $50,000, $400 is a lot looking in a small bucket of $50,000. And if you do 1 or 2 events like that, it's just, you're going to run out of money like that. And that's what happens. So soda lines, beer lines, all this equipment that comes in. Now, we bought equipment at our last restaurant. We bought used equipment. A lot of places will inherit used equipment. Well, a lot of this equipment sometimes doesn't work. We got burned last time on my last restaurant because none of the refrigeration except the walk-in cooler, all the low boys, nothing worked. All the compressors were shot. So all of a sudden, the last minute, after we did construction, and once you finish construction, most places are like, we need to open, which is obviously right. You do need to open and start generating revenue, but only if it's the right scenario. So, once we go to turn all these refrigerators on, nothing works. Nothing works whatsoever. So now we're scrambling to order new refrigerators. So we had to spend an extra $4,000 or $5,000 in refrigeration, which wasn't the big deal. But the big deal is now we're losing a week because the companies have to order these products and ship them to us, and we got to get them put in place. You're losing a week. You're losing a lot of money by losing a week if something's putting you off like that. Here's the big thing: when you negotiate your lease, do not pay rent until the day you open your restaurant. Okay? That's a big mistake a lot of operators make. They start paying rent from day one. You have no idea how long it's going to take you to open and renovate a business, a restaurant. Things happen. Our last place, the air conditioning didn't work. Okay? To be able to go back and now have to say we have to buy an air conditioner and we're paying rent, which of course I knew better, but most places would be like, oh my gosh, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do that, and we're still paying rent. You have no idea how long it's going to take you to open your doors, and your landlord needs to understand that, especially if you're doing capital improvements. Okay, now most landlords are going to want to cap like, well, I'll give you 3 months free or until you open. If you can get something like that, take it, because chances are you might be able to pull something off in 3 months or 4 months. But a landlord's going to want to avoid just sitting on their property for 11 months and not being that active and not doing stuff, okay? So there's two sides of the coin. You have to show that you're going to be active and have a timeline, and maybe say to your landlord, I need the first 4 months or until the day we open. So whatever comes first, 4 months or the day we open, so then you're put under the gun to actually do something quicker as opposed to letting it draw out for 11 months, whatever. So a couple of besides the coolers not working in my last restaurant, the AC didn't work in the one unit, so we had to replace one unit. Things happen when you inherit a building, or when you even build a building. Things happen. Like all of a sudden we turn on the grill in the kitchen, we start grilling. We were grilling vegetables. Next thing I know, smoke is bellowing into the dining room. Who would have ever thought that would have been the case? This was an existing restaurant. There was a hood put in place, an Ansel system, the vending system, all that was put in place. But did the previous owners do something wrong? Did they not have a grill? What was going on in the place before us? You never know. We turned the grill on, fire it up, start grilling, and the whole dining room's filled with smoke. So something was screwed up with the return air. But if you're wasting, if you're losing time that you're open because of something stupid like that, it's costing you way more than fixing the problem. And if people are getting smoked out of your restaurant, then it's really costing you way more. So my point to that is there's so much minutia that can happen of things that can go wrong in your restaurant. And this is why you need plenty of time. You need a training budget to be able to train your staff. So when you turn the grill on 2 weeks ahead of time to do your staff training, to start serving staff meals, you're going to realize that only your staff got smoked out of the dining room, not a dining room full of guests. Okay, super. I cannot stress that enough. So with all these things adding up, it's easy to go over budget, and it's very, very, very feasible to go 2 to 3 times over budget. And really, experts in the industry say 3 to 5 times. If you think you need $50,000, you need $150,000, and that's exactly what happened at my last restaurant. So no, we need 50. Business partner, we need 50. No, we need 150. And that was just the reality of it, okay? Now, I'm an experienced restaurateur, so I know that. But people going into these situations don't know that, and that's where they get burdened. That's when you see these restaurants that open, and they never, ever, ever have a chance in succeeding, because they just can never get ahead. It's one step backwards, 1 step forwards, 2 steps backwards. And it's just like you're just like, the money you're bringing in is the money that you're sending out, right? So it's in out. And it's just like there's nothing ever there as a cushion. That cushion money needs to be part of your opening budget. A lot of people think, well, I can open with $50,000. Right, you can open your doors with $50,000. You can open your doors with $250,000. You might be able to open your doors with $500,000. But what are you going to do to sustain when you're not making money those first months, and to catch up on things that you really didn't think were going to happen? So, get over to my restaurant blog, my restaurant cyber coaching website, 50mistakes.com, FIFTY, or 50mistakes.com. There is tons and tons of free information over there. Don't forget to sign up for my email list over there. I send out valuable tips, and I'm happy to talk more in depth with you. Send me an email at help at 50mistakes.com. I suggest you going around my website, taking that free webinar on building a database. Super, super important on how to build a database. Your database is key. And another big thing, there's a link there for restaurantowner.com. I joined that 13 years ago when we first opened. It saved my butt, restaurantowner.com. It is this huge online library of all these documents that you could possibly use. And there are opening budgets on there. There's opening checklists. I mean, he has a checklist on there. Jim Lab has a checklist on there. Like a month ahead of time, you should be out there doing research and development. Not a month, a year ahead of time, you should be out there doing research and development on the market, concepts, visiting restaurants, figuring out your menu a year ahead of time. So there's timelines on there. Great timelines, but there's all kinds of staff policies. There's legal stuff on there, legal guidelines, all kinds of spreadsheets, inventory spreadsheets, webinars, audio files on there, interviews with the experts. The site is immense, and I think it's like 10 bucks a month or something. It's the best 10 bucks you will ever spend. Click the link on 50mistakes.com, restaurantowner.com. I'm Chef Marcus Guiliano. Thanks for watching this. If you like my videos, please hit like, subscribe to my channel, and definitely share this. Pass it on.